In 2021, a Los Angeles Times investigation shattered one of the most beloved business success stories in America. For over a decade, Richard Montañez told the world he invented Flamin Hot Cheetos, rising from janitor to vice president with nothing but a bold idea and a phone call to the CEO. His story inspired millions, became a Disney movie starring Eva Longoria, and made him worth an estimated $15 million as a motivational speaker. There was just one problem. According to Frito-Lay's own records, none of it happened the way he said. But here's where this story gets really interesting, because whether Richard invented Flamin Hot Cheetos or not, his real journey reveals something far more complex about corporate America, the narratives we believe, and why we're so desperate for rags to riches tales. This isn't just about chips, it's about who gets to tell their story, what happens when those stories don't match reality, and the multi-million-dollar industry built on inspiration itself. If you find stories like this fascinating, where we dig beneath viral headlines to uncover the economic forces and human decisions that really shaped events, please hit that like button and subscribe to The Sleeping Economist, because we're uncovering these financial mysteries that most people missed. Chapter 1: The Perfect American Dream Story. Richard Montañez was born in 1958 in Guasti, California, a small community in the Cucamonga Valley. His family were Mexican immigrants, and by all accounts, life was genuinely hard. 14 people living in a one-bedroom home. His father was a migrant farm worker. Richard spoke limited English growing up and dropped out of school in the 4th grade, unable to see how education connected to his future when survival was the daily priority. For years, he worked wherever he could. Farms, factories, odd jobs that paid cash under the table. Then in 1976, when Richard was 18 years old, he got hired at the Frito-Lay plant in Rancho Cucamonga. The job? Maintenance worker, earning $4 an hour. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady work with a major American company. And that meant something. According to Montañez's own telling, repeated in countless speeches, 2 published memoirs, and eventually immortalized in a 2023 Disney film, his grandfather gave him advice before his first day. Make sure that floor shines. Let them know a Montañez mopped it. It's a beautiful sentiment about pride in your work, regardless of your position. Now, this is where his story starts to build momentum. Montañez says he became obsessed with understanding the business. He'd study how chips were made during his shifts, how they were marketed, how brands spoke to customers. He didn't just mop floors, he was conducting his own informal MBA program on the factory floor, driven purely by curiosity and ambition. Then came the pivotal moment in his narrative. In the mid-1980s, during a period when Frito-Lay was struggling with competition and market share, the CEO, Roger Enrico, allegedly sent a video message to all employees with a simple directive: act like an owner. Most employees probably nodded and went back to their work routines. But according to Montañez, he took it literally. Completely literally. He noticed that Frito-Lay products didn't cater to Latino customers like himself. Walk into any Mexican grocery store and you'd find Mexican spices right next to the chips. But the chips themselves, plain. No connection to the flavors Latino families actually wanted. So Montañez claims he created his own prototype at home. He took regular Cheetos, coated them in chili powder and his own spice blend, sealed them with a clothing iron, and drew Flamin' Hot logos by hand. Then, and this is the boldest part of his story, he picked up the phone and called the CEO directly, a janitor, calling the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. Who's calling? They asked. Richard Montañez. I'm a janitor and I have an idea for a new product. There was silence. Then, instead of hanging up, the CEO allegedly got on the line himself and said, prepare a presentation. Montañez ran to the library, borrowed marketing books, and 2 weeks later walked into a boardroom with 100 handmade bags of spicy Cheetos. He didn't pitch corporate trends. He pitched reality. Latino customers were invisible in their aisles. The room fell silent. Then the CEO said, put that mop away. You're coming with us. Chapter 2. The story goes viral. What happened next, according to Montañez's narrative, was meteoric success. Flamin Hot Cheetos launched soon after his presentation and became one of Frito-Lay's biggest hits ever. a genuine cultural phenomenon. Richard rose through the ranks, eventually becoming vice president of multicultural sales and marketing for PepsiCo, earning that $20 million fortune the viral post mentioned. From janitor to executive, the ultimate underdog story. And for over a decade, everyone believed it. Why wouldn't they? It had all the elements of a perfect American dream narrative: immigrant family, poverty, dropout turned autodidact, corporate risk-taking, diversity and inclusion, entrepreneurial thinking, bold action, and massive reward. It was motivational speaker gold. Montañez began touring the country telling his story. Universities invited him. Corporations paid him handsomely to inspire their employees. His speaking fee? Reports suggest anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 per appearance. He wrote a children's book in 2013 called A Boy, a Burrito, and a Cookie. Then in 2021, he published his memoir, Flamin Hot, the incredible true story of one man's rise from janitor to top executive. The story was so compelling that Disney picked it up. Eva Longoria directed a biopic called Flamin Hot that premiered in June 2023. The film portrayed Montañez as an inspirational figure who overcame systemic barriers through sheer determination and creativity. Critics praised it, audiences loved it. Richard Montañez became a household name, a symbol of what's possible in America if you just work hard enough and dare to dream. But while Hollywood was greenlit his story, something else was happening behind the scenes. Journalists at the Los Angeles Times had started digging into the actual timeline of Flamin Hot Cheetos' creation. What they discovered would crack open one of the most celebrated business success stories of the 21st century. Reporter Sam Dean spent months investigating, interviewing more than a dozen former Frito-Lay employees, reviewing internal company documents, examining trademark records, and speaking with the people who were actually working at headquarters in the late 1980s and early 1990s, when Flamin Hot products were being developed. The investigation revealed something stunning. According to Frito-Lay's own records, Flamin Hot Cheetos were developed by a team at corporate headquarters in Plano, Texas, starting in 1989. The project was led by Lynn Greenfeld, a young product manager who created the Flamin Hot brand name and oversaw the entire development process. Test markets launched in the summer of 1990 in cities like Detroit and Chicago. The company's official statement was unequivocal. None of our records show that Richard was involved in any capacity in the Flamin Hot test market. Montañez's timeline didn't match. His claim that he called the CEO and presented his idea. Company records showed no evidence of such a call or presentation during the relevant period. The dramatic boardroom scene? No documentation. The CEO telling him to put that mop away? Former executives said they had no memory of such an event, and it didn't align with corporate protocol. Chapter 3. The investigation goes public. In May 2021, the Los Angeles Times published their investigation under the headline, "The Man Who Didn't Invent Flamin Hot Cheetos." The article went viral for entirely different reasons than Montañez's story had. The response was immediate and polarized. Some readers felt betrayed. If Montañez had fabricated or embellished his story, what did that say about all the other inspirational narratives they'd believed? Others defended him, arguing that even if he didn't invent Flamin Hot Cheetos specifically, his broader career trajectory from janitor to executive was still impressive and still true. The controversy raised uncomfortable questions about corporate America and storytelling. Lynn Greenfeld, the woman who actually led the Flamin Hot development team, had worked in relative obscurity while Montañez toured the country claiming credit. Greenfeld, who now goes by her married name Lemmel, told reporters she was very proud of her work creating the brand but hadn't sought publicity. She just did her job. So how did Montañez's version become the dominant narrative? Several factors converged. First, Frito-Lay itself never publicly challenged his story for years. In fact, the company seemed to tacitly endorse it, featuring Montañez in some marketing materials and allowing him to represent the brand at events. Why would they do this if it wasn't true? The answer appears to be complicated. Montañez did work for Frito-Lay for over 40 years and did rise to executive positions. Company sources suggest he may have worked on other spicy product ideas for Latino markets in California during the early 1990s, just not Flamin Hot Cheetos specifically. His story of innovation and upward mobility wasn't entirely false, it just wasn't about the product he claimed. For PepsiCo, having a Latino executive with an inspiring background was valuable from a diversity and inclusion perspective, especially in the 2000s and 2010s, when corporations were under increasing pressure to demonstrate representation in leadership. Montañez's story fit perfectly into that narrative. Challenging it publicly might have created more problems than it solved. But once the investigation made headlines, the company had to respond. PepsiCo acknowledged that Montañez was an important member of our team, and that he has made and continues to make important contributions. But they confirmed that records didn't support his claim of inventing Flamin Hot Cheetos. Montañez himself pushed back against the article. He told Variety in 2023, "I stand by my story, I lived it." He suggested that the investigation was an attempt to diminish his accomplishments and that corporate record-keeping from decades ago was incomplete. By this point, Disney's film was already in production. Longoria and the studio faced a dilemma: move forward with a feel-good movie based on a disputed story, or cancel a major project that had already cost millions. They chose to move forward, adding a disclaimer that the film was inspired by true events rather than a documentary-accurate account. Chapter 4. When inspiration meets reality. The backlash to the LA Times investigation revealed something fascinating about how we consume success stories. Many people didn't care whether Montañez actually invented Flamin Hot Cheetos. What mattered to them was the inspiration they derived from his narrative. One fan wrote on social media, "Even if he didn't invent the exact chip, he still showed that anyone can make it in America. That's what matters." But this reaction raises profound economic and ethical questions. If motivational narratives don't need to be factually accurate to be valuable, what's the relationship between truth and inspiration? And who profits when those boundaries blur? Consider the economics. Montañez built an estimated $15 million personal brand as a motivational speaker and author based largely on the Flamin Hot story. Organizations paid premium fees to hear him speak because they believed they were hearing from the actual inventor of a billion-dollar product. Would they have paid the same fees to hear about a janitor who became a regional marketing executive with a disputed connection to a famous snack food? Probably not. Meanwhile, Lynn Greenfell worked for decades in product development without the fame, the book deals, or the Disney movie. Her contributions were documented in company records but never celebrated in the same way. This disparity highlights persistent issues in corporate America about who gets recognized for innovation and whose stories get amplified. In July 2024, the controversy took another turn. A Frito-Lay employee named Fred Martinez filed a lawsuit against PepsiCo, claiming that he was the actual inventor of Flamin Hot Cheetos and that the company had unjustly enriched both Montañez and itself by promoting false origin stories. Martinez claimed he developed the spicy snack concept in the late 1980s while working at the company's Detroit facility. The lawsuit was ultimately dismissed in May 2025, with the court finding insufficient evidence that Martinez was the sole inventor or that PepsiCo had acted in bad faith. But the case illustrated just how messy the true origins of Flamin Hot Cheetos had become. Was it Greenfeld's team in Texas, Martinez in Detroit, Montañez in California, or was it, like most corporate innovations, a collaborative effort with multiple contributors that doesn't fit neatly into an inspiring individual success story? The truth appears to be that last option. Product development at major corporations isn't about lone geniuses having eureka moments. It's about teams of people conducting market research, running test batches, analyzing consumer data, coordinating with manufacturing, and iterating over months or years. That's not cinematic. It doesn't make for good motivational speeches, but it's reality. Montañez's story succeeded because it offered something that complex corporate processes can't: a simple narrative with a clear hero, obstacle, and triumph. We want to believe that one person with a bold idea can change their life and their company. Chapter 5. The Motivational Industrial Complex. Today, Richard Montañez continues his work as a motivational speaker. Despite the controversy, he still commands significant fees and maintains that his story is true. His website describes him as the creator of the Flamin Hot line of products, without acknowledging the disputed nature of that claim. Of that, the Disney film performed moderately well, earning generally positive reviews that praised its feel-good energy, while noting that it should be viewed as inspirational fiction rather than documentary fact. Critics observed that the movie followed a familiar formula: take a disputed or partially true story, add dramatic flourish, emphasize themes of perseverance and inclusion, and deliver an uplifting message that makes audiences feel good. But the Montañez controversy reveals something larger about what I call the motivational industrial complex, an entire economy built around selling inspiration, often with truth as a secondary concern. Consider how many business success stories follow suspiciously similar patterns: humble beginnings, a light bulb moment, overcoming adversity, dramatic success, lessons learned. These narratives are polished, packaged, and monetized through books, speeches, seminars, and films. How many of them would withstand rigorous fact-checking? We don't know because we rarely look. We consume these stories not as journalism, but as entertainment and self-help, which means we apply different standards of accuracy. When an autobiography says based on real events, we tend to accept emotional truth over factual precision. There's a market incentive structure at play here. Speakers who tell simple, inspiring stories get booked more often and can command higher fees than those who tell complicated, nuanced stories about collective effort and incremental progress. Publishers want books with clear takeaways and emotional arcs. Hollywood wants underdog stories with satisfying endings. This creates pressure, conscious or unconscious, to shape real experiences into narratives that fit these expectations. Maybe you start by slightly embellishing a detail to make a speech more engaging. Then the embellishment becomes part of your standard telling. Then you're asked to write a book, and the publisher wants more drama. Over time, the story evolves further from what actually happened, but you've told it so many times that it becomes your truth. I'm not excusing fabrication, but I am suggesting we understand the economic forces that incentivize it. Montañez built his entire post-corporate career on the Flamin Hot story. Admitting it wasn't accurate would mean potentially losing speaking engagements, book sales, credibility, and legacy. The economic pressure to maintain the narrative is enormous. Meanwhile, the real innovators, people like Lynn Greenfeld who worked quietly in corporate product development, remain largely unknown because their stories don't fit the inspirational template we crave. Greenfeld led a team. She worked for a corporation. She followed processes. She didn't make a desperate phone call to a CEO. She just did her job really well. That's not marketable in the same way. Chapter 6. Truth, Narratives, and the Real American Dream. So what's the lesson here? What should we take away from the Flamin Hot controversy? First, be skeptical of perfectly packaged success stories. When a narrative seems too clean, too dramatic, too perfectly aligned with cultural myths about hard work and opportunity, dig deeper. Real human experiences are messy. Real innovation involves failure, collaboration, bureaucracy, luck, and timing. Second, recognize that success in corporate America often comes from navigating systems, building relationships, understanding politics, and delivering results consistently over time, not from dramatic moments of genius. Montañez did work for Frito-Lay for over 40 years and did rise to executive positions. That's genuinely impressive, especially for someone who started with limited formal education and faced language barriers. Third, understand the economics of inspiration itself. There's a massive industry built around selling people the promise that they can achieve extraordinary success if they just work hard enough, think creatively enough, and dare boldly enough. This industry needs stories like Montañez's to fuel it. Fourth, credit matters. When we celebrate the wrong person as an innovator, we potentially erase the actual innovators. Lynn Greenfeld deserved recognition for her work creating the Flamin Hot brand. The broader development team deserved credit. Finally, we need to get comfortable with complexity. The American dream narrative is seductive precisely because it's simple. Work hard, have a great idea, take a risk, succeed. Reality is more complicated. Richard Montañez's real story, whatever it is, probably involves some initiative, some skill, some timing, some help from others, some systemic factors, and yes, some narrative embellishment. That complex human reality is less inspiring than the Disney version, but it's more true. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Truth, even when it's complicated and messy, is ultimately more valuable than inspiration built on fiction. If stories like this, where we uncover the economic events that shaped our world while most people weren't paying attention, fascinate you, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, because we're just getting started with these financial, educational mysteries.